Okay, this is the chapter 2 review. For some of the word problems, you'll need your textbook so that you can actually read the word problem. Um, we are starting off with the terms. I asked you to write the term in the blank, not the letter for the term because it was a matching section in the book. A value that makes an equation true is called a solution. A term that has no variable is a constant term. A number or the product of a number and a variable is a term. Terms with identical variables are like terms. Equations with one or more variables are called open sentences. Mathematical equation with it or sentence with an equal sign is an equation. And a mathematical sentence with one of these symbols is an inequality. And we didn't deal with this one a whole lot in here. That's not equal to. And so a little note here to make sure you study your flashcards. Not all of the terms are reviewed above. Here we're going to simplify using either the commutative or associative property. And so we're going to have, I'm going to put the 58 with the 2, rearranging using the commutative property, and then the 16 and 4. And so if I add these two together, I get 60. And if I add these two together, I get 20. And so I have 80. Here I'm going to use the commutative property and rearrange the 7 and the 25 because 4 times 25 is 100. 7 times 1 is 7, and so I get 700. Here I'm going to put the 125 and add it to the 75 first because that would be 200. And 200 plus 347 would be 547. It only changes the hundreds position. Here I'm going to rearrange and do the 20 times the 5 first because that's 100. And then 100 times 65 would just stick 2 zeros on the end of that 65. I would keep this one as is because I know that 15 times 2 is 30. And I would get 300. Here, I'm going to move the 37 with the 63. And I don't need to write down the plus 0 because that's the additive identity property. Anything I add to it to 0 is just going to give me that number. 63 and 37 is 100. So we get 105. And by the way, this is using those commutative, associative, additive identity, multiplication identity right here where 7 times 1 is 7. Those are in those flashcards, so make sure that you can recognize those. So if I did like here where I did 16 plus 2 plus 4 is the same as 2 plus 16 plus 4, that's the commutative property where I rearrange the numbers. And then the associative property is where they're grouped like this, forcing me to add the 58 and the 2 first and the 16 and the 4 first. Here we're going to use the distributive property kind of backwards. I'm going to write 96 as 100 minus 4. So that would be 900. 9 times 4 is 36. So I get 900 minus 36. I don't know if you need to do this longhand, but we're going to have 4, 6, 864. 8 times 62 is going to be 8 times 60 plus 2. So 8 times 60 plus 8 times 2. 8 times 60 is 480. 6 eighths is 48, and then I just have that 0 from the 60. And then 8 times 2 is 16, and so that's going to be 496. 40 plus 3 times 9. So 9 times 40 plus 9 times 3, or you could write it 40 times 9, doesn't matter. And 3 times 9, 27. So 360 plus 27 is going to be 387. And then here we're using the distributive property, so 4 times W would be 4W. 4 times a positive 9 is a positive 36. 12 times 2 is 24. 12 times a positive 4A, 12 times 4 is 48, and the A is still there. Negative 7 times 6 is negative 42. Negative 7 times negative 2 is positive 14, and then that M is still there. Simplify by combining like terms, so we have 8 minus 11 on our A's. So the signs are different, so we find the difference, which would be 3, and keep the sign of the larger. And then 7 doesn't have anything to go with it. On 25, the first thing we have to do is multiply through using that distributive property. So 3 times W is 3W, 3 times positive 3 is positive 9. And then we combine like terms, 3W and 4W, they're both positive, so add them up. We have 7 W's. In number 26, we have X and minus 4X. So there's a 1 there, even though it's not showing. So that's going to give me a negative 3X because the signs are different. So we find the difference and keep the sign of the larger. And then the 6 and 3 are both positive, so we will add those and get plus 9. Oops, went too far. Okay, the 19, I don't do anything with. Negative 4 times positive 5n would be negative 20n. Negative 4 times positive 1 would be negative 4. Putting our numbers together, we have negative 24n because they are both negative, so we add them and keep the sign. And then 19 minus 4 would be 15. Here, the 10 plus 7k, and now I need to use my distributive property. Negative 6k, negative 2 times positive 3. Negative 2 times positive 5 is negative 10. So dealing with my letters, 7k minus 6k would only leave me 1k left, and I'm not going to write the 1, it's there. And then 10 minus 10 is 0, so our answer is just k. Negative 7 times 2r is negative 14r. Negative 7 times negative 1 is positive 7. Positive 3 times 8 is positive 24. Positive 3 times negative r is negative 3r. Combining like terms, they're both negative, so we add them and keep the sign. They're both positive. We add them and keep the sign. And just a note here, if you looked up 26 and 27, I'm not sure if the answers are in the back of the book. They listed the number first. They did the 6 plus 3 and got 9, and then the 1x minus 4x and got minus 3x. Those two are equivalent expressions. The same thing happened here. They did the 19 minus 4 is 15, and then the negative 20n and negative 4n and got negative 24n. I will write these with the letters first because that's the standard way in which they are written. When you get to 31, you're just writing an equation and then telling whether it's true, false, or an open sentence. So 32 plus 5 equals the product of 6 and 6. And you can write that like that with 6.6, or you can write it like that. And this is a false statement because 32 plus 5 would be 37, and the product of 6 times 6 would be 36. And so they are not equal. A number t divided by 17 equals the opposite of 3. And that negative is the opposite of 3. This is an open sentence because it has a variable in it. And then number 33, the product of 4 and 20, product means multiplication, equals 80. And that's true because 4 times 20 does equal 80. And then once we hit 34 and then 28 and 29, you need your textbook for these. So 34, it says the admissions price of an art museum increased by $1.75 to $6.50. Let P equal the original admission price. Write an equation for the model. So they actually already identified the variable for you, the original price. So whatever the original price was, they increased it by $1.70. And the new price, not $1.70, $1.75. The new price is $6.50. And this one you did not have to solve. So that's all you had to do there was write the equation. Number 28, which is on page 120, says 36 sections of fencing, all the same length, are joined to form 180 meters. How long is a section of fencing? So we want to identify a variable, and I'm going to say X is the length of a section. And we've got 36 of them. So 36 times that length is my 180. So to solve, we're going to divide both sides by 36. And I think we're going to get 5. 5 times 6 is 30. Carry the 3. Yes, we're going to get 5. So each, and this was in meters because it was 180 meters. So each one was 5 meters long. Number 29 says Brian bought a used bike for $25 less than its original price. He paid $88 for the bike. What was the original price? So let's let P be the original price. You could have used a different letter. That's fine. Whatever the original price is, he paid $25 less than that. So we're going to subtract 25 and get 88. So to solve it, we add 25 to both sides. And we get the original price being $113. So we go back to the chapter review, and we are solving and showing our work. We have 6 plus y. That 6 is positive because there's no sign showing there. So I'm going to subtract it because I could just as easily write that as y plus 6. 6 plus y is the same as y plus 6. That's the commutative property. So if that bothers you to just do it straight like this and end up with y equals 11, then rewrite it as y plus 6 equals 17. You don't have to do that though. Here I have a minus 10, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides. Negative 2, positive 10. The signs are different, so find the difference between 10 and 2 and keep the sign of the larger, and I get a equals 8. Number 37, I have 3 times x, so I'm going to divide by 3. Negative 15 divided by positive 3 is negative 5. M divided by 9, so I'm going to multiply both sides by by 9. Here that would be over 1 and it would cancel. We get 27. Here I need to multiply both sides by 4. Again, we could write that as over 1 to see that it's up in the numerator and it'll cancel. So we have 32 times 4, 8, 128. And then on this one, I need to divide by negative 5. I get negative 8. 40 divided by 5 is 8, but it's a positive divided by a negative, so I get negative 8. And then 41, we are told that Marcella and Danilo went to the bookstore. So Marcello bought 2 notebooks and 3 pens. And Danilo, I don't know how to say that, bought 1 notebook and 2 pens. So let me set up a table here. Okay, I need her total to be 1450 and his total to be 750. So let's say that the pens were $1 and the notebooks were $2. So that would be for her, 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 1 is 3. That will not work. The prices aren't high enough. So let's increase them. Let's do 3 and 2. I'm assuming the pens are less. So 2 times 3 would be 6. 3 times 2 would be 6. So I'm up to $12. So still not quite up there. What if we made that 350? That would be 350 times 2 is $7. 7 plus 6 is 13. What if pens were 250? That would be 250 times 3 is $7.50. So that would give me my 1450. So that would work for her, but would it work for Danilo? 1 notebook would be 350. 2 pens would be $5. So that's 850. So no, that doesn't work. So let's go up again on the price for notebooks. So let's say $4. So that would be $8 here. What would I need? 1450 minus 8 is 650. I don't think I can get it. 650 divided by 3, it's not evenly divisible. So $4 won't work. So you can see this is just, it takes some time. Let's try 450. That would be $9. That would leave me with $5.50, which is not divisible by 3. So that won't work. $5. That would be $10 here, and that would leave me $4.50, which again is not divisible by 3 because 45 is not divisible by 3. So $5 won't work. $5.50 would be $10, $11. That would give me $3.50 left. Again, not divisible by 3 because 35 is not divisible by 3. So $5.50 won't work. 6 would be $12. That would be $2.50. $2.50. That 25 is not divisible by 3, so that won't work. What was I at? 6? Let's try 650. 650 times 2 is 13. That would leave me with $1.50 here, which would be 50 cents. So that one would work. Let's per pen. So 1 notebook at 650, 2 pens, 2 times 50 would be $1. So this is the price. So that's it took some time to get there, but that's okay. Graphing them, m is greater than 5, open circle since there's no or equal to. And remember, your arrowhead will match the direction of your inequality if your letter is written first. Greater than or equal to -2, I'm going to use a darkened dot and go that way. This one I'm going to rewrite. It opens up to the R, so I rewrote it as opening up to the R, open circle at 0 and going that way. And W is less than or equal to 6, so a darkened dot. And this way, remember we use open circles if there's no or equal to. We use a darkened dot if that or equal to is showing up there. Then write an inequality. The temperature T is less than 0 degrees. The height H is greater than 12 feet. And then one from page 120, the number of questions answered correctly Q is at most, so I'm going to use a less than or equal to 49 because at most uses less than or equal to, at least uses greater than or equal to. Then solving inequalities. Remember that when we solve inequalities, if we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to change the direction of the inequality. But with addition and subtraction, we don't have to worry about it. So we're going to get n is greater than 14. So I'm going to do 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So an open circle and this way. On this one, I'm going to add 7 to both sides. And I'm going to get these two, the signs are different. So we find the difference and keep the sign of the larger. Then I'm going to rewrite my inequality so that it's in a form that I'm used to seeing so that my inequality direction will match my arrowhead. Again, it opened up towards the K and it does here as well. So, oh, I got to fix that. It's greater than 2 and it's flipped upside down for you. I will fix that before you get it. So we're going to have a darkened dot at 2 and going this way. Divide both sides by 6. We get S is less than or equal to 3. Darkened dot at 3 going this way. Again, remember that arrowhead matches the inequality as long as your variable is first. Multiply both sides by 3. So we get M is less than -6. This is -1 times D, so I'm going to divide by -1. And I get D is less than -14. Note that your inequality changes directions because you divide it by a negative. Here we need to multiply by -4. And we get C is less than or equal to 36. Again, we changed the direction of our inequality because we multiplied by a -4. Not because of that negative. It was already there. We didn't multiply by it. We multiplied by a -4, and that's why we needed to change the direction of our inequality. And then finally, just making sure you know how to find coefficients like terms and constants. The coefficients in this one, there's a 1 sitting there. If there's nothing showing, there's a 1 in front of the letter. The like terms are the x and the -5x, and the constant is that -6. My coefficients are -3 and 4. There are no like terms in this one. And my constant is 5. And on this one, my coefficients are -2 and 5. My like terms are -2y and 5y. And there are no constants. Constants are numbers without variables. So again, make sure you look over your flashcards, and that is your review for Chapter 2.